ever find yourself sitting at your desk and dreaming about a tropical vacation, or maybe even just a weekend getaway, or worrying about how you're going to pay for some necessary repairs? Taking these issues from a dream or a fear and finding a solution all has to do with how you manage your finances, and more specifically, dealing with savings. Because these are things that aren't just your regular month to month expenses: the rent, the car payment, utilities, food, things like that. These are things that take a little bit of extra planning, and we're going to help you work today to work on that and figure out a solution. So, official greetings. My name is Libby Ludwig, and I'm one of the financial service specialists here with Apprisen. And we are very happy to be able to share today for this information that was developed by Ideas 42 and through generous support from Capital One. So, why do we even worry about savings? Because I think for a lot of people who sit across the desk from me and we talk about their finances, the immediate concerns are, costs are going up. My rent payment is going up. I need to get a new vehicle, and it's not a great time to be buying a vehicle. What can I do just to meet those basic needs? How on earth am I going to talk about doing anything above and beyond that towards savings? And the answer in part is it's because savings puts you in control. It provides a safety cushion. It provides a chance where you don't have to fall back on something that is much more costly. You don't have to go open a new credit card or take out a high interest loan or a payday advance. Being able to have savings gives you some sense of security. So that's an emotional benefit and psychological benefit. And it's also a financial benefit because it lets you be able to earn a little bit on what you're setting aside rather than having to pay out an interest. There are different types of savings goals. The most basic one that I always recommend to folks is to at least have some kind of rainy day savings. That would be for those necessary car repairs, for upkeep on your house, for renewing a car tag that's coming up in the next couple of months, for a medical expense that's coming up, perhaps. Even just $500, $1,000 can help immensely to be able to keep you from having to borrow and have high interest costs. The next step up is some kind of emergency savings. So this is the slightly more at least, long-term goal of having 3 to 6 months of your monthly income and monthly expenses in savings. That way, if something bigger happened, such as having to be out of work, being out sick, having surgery, changing jobs, having to relocate, something like that, and you need to be able to pull from savings during that time so that you don't fall behind on bills, or so that you have enough for deposits and things like that if you have to move. So that's certainly a goal number 2. And then there's also targeted savings. That's the vacation planning, or being able to retire early, or Christmas costs sometimes, things like that, so that you can be able to set aside and be ready for those. So today, part of what we're going to do, and what you'll have a chance to do, is to set a savings goal. Okay, looking at all of these different types of savings and different plans and different reasons for wanting to save, what is it that sticks out as most necessary and most exciting for you? Where is it that you feel motivated to work? Is it to having a safety net, or is it towards an exciting way of spending the savings for an experience or for a purchase that's going to be meaningful for your life? Take a few moments, think through what's going on in your life and what might be exciting. We're going to have a chance to hone in on this a little bit later on. So, honing in on the savings goal, strongly recommend just choosing one goal. It's so easy to brainstorm and say, there's 1,000 things I wish I could do with my money. I want to go on a vacation. I want to be able to buy stuff for the kids. We are going to need new clothes with a season change. I really wish I could afford a newer vehicle than the one I'm having to put money into for upkeep all the time. And you start thinking of all of the 1,000 things that you want to be able to save and spend for. But If you chase two rabbits, you lose them both. The same is true a lot of times with savings. It's best to start with one thing at a time. That way you can see the goal really clearly and you can make quicker progress towards the one goal. When you meet that goal, you can set another. So pick the one thing that you feel like you need to do the most, or that excites you the most, that you're most engaged in actually seeing come to pass. And I love the line down here, the goal is possible because you say. That extra bit above and beyond what's happening for the rent, the car payment, the utilities, the food, the necessities, it's what gets you to that goal. And then take a moment to envision what it looks like when it happens. How will you feel when that goal is achieved? Where will you be? Maybe that's your trip destination. What will you be doing? How will the people you love feel? How will your kids feel with a vehicle that you know gets you to and from places instead of having to use public transportation? Or when you get to ride the big roller coaster at the new amusement park in your state, or whatever it is. Picture it as clearly as you can. Envision yourself in that space. And then let's make a plan to get you there. So as part of this presentation, you also get some handouts and some worksheets to help you in the process so that you can log all of the things that you're thinking through and what your plans are. And this is step number 1, is to write down what that goal is. So for example, your goal is to pay for repairs for the car. So how will I feel once this happens? Once I pay for the repairs, I will have less stress in the mornings about getting to work on time. If I can take my car instead of the bus, I'll have more time to eat. This just gives you a good example. So what goal did you choose? What is it that's most meaningful to you? And what did you picture? What does it look like when you put yourself in that space? So step 2, how often can I save? So making an actual plan for breaking this down. The best time to save is when the money comes in. So as you get your paycheck, you figure out how much needs to go to housing costs, to transportation costs, to food costs, to debts, to other things. And one of those items needs to be, how much can I save? So that could be, for example, if you get a paycheck every week, every 2 weeks, once a month. If you get paid less regularly, you may even be able to set aside a little each week. So for example, setting up a automatic transfer from your checking to your savings, or from one bank to another bank if you need to move it a little further away so it doesn't get spent. Even just $5 or $10 a week. Sometimes you don't feel that necessarily as much because it's a smaller number, but it's still squirreling it away for later so that you can have it into savings. So for example, on your worksheet, you can say, I promise to save for myself, promising yourself to save, pay yourself every 2 weeks. And then how much? And that's always the difficult question, because that really kind of requires, you have to do it one of 2 ways. You can either sit down and make a real detailed listing of what all of your expenses are so that you know for sure how much is there. Or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to do a decently small number. And if I absolutely can't do it, I'll scale back, I'll scale up. You just have to be super flexible and honest with yourself either way. So how much can you easily save in the amount of time? So every 2 weeks, even if it's a little number, whatever it is, how much is comfortable that you know you wouldn't miss? One less meal through the drive-through, one less download streaming service, game on. How much? And do the math. After a year, how much is that going to be? How much does that $5 every 2 weeks? That $20 every 2 weeks? How much does it work out? Don't worry. If you're not a math person, we've done the numbers. So if you save $5 a week, it turns out to be $250 a year. If you're saving $10 a week, it's $500. You can see the chart from there. If you chose to save every 2 weeks, you would multiply the number by 25. So basically half of what's there. So if you're saving $5 every 2 weeks, it would only be 125. If you choose a monthly goal, multiply your number by 10. So if you're saving $50 a month, that would be at least $500 a year. In theory, you'll actually multiply it by 12, but sometimes things happen and it's just easier to multiply by 10. And if you save more than that, obviously all the better, but multiply times 10 gives you at least a roundabout number. It does add up fast. Do the math for yourself. How much would that be for you at the end of your year? Again, it's simplified math. It's not exactly 100%, and it depends on what your interest rate is too, but giving you an idea. So once you have a number, making a plan, knowing that you're going to help yourself succeed. We always recommend to not do too much. I have some people that come in and they've got a really, really, really tight budget and they're just determined to set aside $100 a month because they want to be at their goal sooner rather than later. The problem with this is if you set aside and move too much, you wind up having to redraft that money from your savings into your checking to be able to pay the monthly bills. Not the end of the world, but it sets up that habit of pulling out of savings. And the goal more realistically is to be able to leave that in savings, let it grow, pretend that it's not there almost until you absolutely need it. And so you really want to choose an amount that's realistic that you can be able to leave in savings. And sometimes you don't know this until you get a month or two into it. And so if you have that, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to go get a second job, or I'm going to do delivery service or do something so that I have at least $100 a month to put into savings. But then you find out that you just can't keep up with a second job with logistics for your schedule. Making that change back. And it's not a moral failing to say, oh my gosh, I can't do $100 a month. I'm just not at that place yet. Maybe I can do $40 a month. That's still saving. Number one, that's still savings. And number two, you've learned something about yourself and you've learned something about your money. And while that's not literal money in the bank, figuratively it is. It's learning about your unique financial situation and your unique financial spending habits. And that is worth a lot. It's also worth talking through a few ideas and brainstormings for how to maximize your savings. Because for a lot of folks, they're like, I'm just determined. I really want to be able to save more. I know I need to. I know I need to have the medical procedure done. I need to have a better vehicle. I've got to find some ways to save. And so these are some very common ones that we have seen people do and that we've done ourselves here as counselors. To be able to shop around for the best prices. I know for myself, some grocery stores have better deals on meats. Some grocery stores have canned foods on sale certain weeks where I can get canned stuff there. To find cheaper or free alternatives. I use this as an example regularly. I can't believe the amount of money that my mother spent on books for me when I was little. And I had an enormous library of things that I read once or twice. When there's this place that will let you go and rent them out for free. Just return them. And so we use our library a ton, not just for books, but for videos, for movie night, for activities, for learning stuff. It's amazing a lot of times what you can find locally available for either cheap or free if you look. To be able to avoid fees, organizing your payment schedule and your calendars so that you can pay most of your bills either on the days that you get paid. A lot of times people have all of their bills coming out at the first of the month when they get paid twice a month. And so, things begin to fall behind the 10th, 11th, and 12th. If you can just move some due dates to the 20th or so that you can pay it out of the second check, that's a fantastic option. Unsubscribe from things you don't use. If there's streaming services you don't use, if you are still paying for DoorDash in monthly fees or something else that you're not really using that much anymore, to unsubscribe from some of those kinds of things. Anything else? What are some other thoughts and some other things that you guys do to help cut costs and keep the expenses down to be able to save more? For myself, my absolute favorite one is a meal planning. I sit down and make a plan every Saturday morning for what we're going to cook and do for the rest of that week, for the next 7 days, and then plan grocery shopping around that. Otherwise, I buy everything in the store and then half of it goes in the trash unused after. So, big proponent for that. I know some people that um, have been able to sell additional items and things like that, to try to make a little extra and throw into savings. Um, there's a ton of different brainstorming ways. People are always creative. I love it. There's a few other ideas that you can add in as you brainstorm for yourself in Area 5, using a coupon or coupon apps. We talked about different groceries and cheaper stores, free activities, cable subscription, an extra dinner to bring for lunch so that you don't have to pick up lunch while you're at work. It's your turn. We're going to give you a chance to brainstorm among yourselves. Talk about different ideas that you've had work in the past or things that you'd like to try. I love giving people the permission to have excitement about their money and to try things because you don't know what's going to work for you until you try. So having a list of a few things that you think might work that you'd like to see yourself do in the next few weeks. So take a few minutes, brainstorm, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts. So the purpose of brainstorming is not necessarily always to figure out exactly what's going to work, but is to think through the broadest spectrum of ideas possible. What are some things that might work that you might like to try? But then once you've done the brainstorming session, it's time to figure out, okay, where are we going to go? What am I actually going to implement? So look at your list that you have come up with of different ideas. Pick one. Let's start with one. What's one idea that you think actually will work best in your unique situation? It's something that's decently easy. And it's something that significantly, meaningfully cuts your costs. So easy enough that you can stick with, robust enough that it's actually going to make a difference. So for that one brainstorming idea that you're going to stick with, let's break it down further and make it super practical. What are 2 specific steps that you plan to take to help implement it? For example, you could say, where am I going to do this? Or when can I do this? Or who could help me do this? This is thinking through some of the potential hardships you may have. Oh, I'll do this sometime. Or I'll do the grocery shopping somewhere else. But if you don't actually cement those with specifics in your calendar, in your mind, it's much less likely to happen. So by putting some specifics on it, you're setting yourself up for success. So I love these real examples here. So if the goal was to reduce the grocery costs and to work on coupons, step 1 could be I need to find coupons for the items I need. So I'm going to sit on my couch while watching TV on Thursday evenings, flip through apps on my phone and clip virtual coupons for what I need. I'm going to call my sister and say, hey, it's coupon time. Let's do this. How many can you find? Make it a competition. Step 2 would be to find and actually use the coupons and to buy the items that you need. So I'm going to use them at Walmart. I do my grocery shopping Sundays at 4, and the kids will come with me, maybe. Always spend more when the kids are there, right? But it gives you a game plan to say, I'm going to find the coupons on Thursday. I'm going to go do the purchases on Sunday before things expire. So for step 8 on your worksheet, Write down when and where you'll deposit that savings amount. So, for example, if you have cash that you need to take, you're going to take the $25 on Sunday at 5 p.m. on the way home from work, from wherever, and you're going to put it in the bank next to the grocery store. So that's a very physical option. If it's something where you're saving money from the savings account, from the checking account, money that you like from the grocery coupons, you don't have $25 in cash that you didn't spend. You're not getting a rebate, but you have extra money still sitting in your checking account because you didn't spend it at the grocery store. So maybe Sunday, after you get back from the grocery store run at 5 p.m., you're back sitting on the couch watching TV, and you transfer that $25 from your checking account to savings account. That's still totally savings. It counts just as much as putting cash in the bank. It's just a different route for doing it. And I want to have a bit of a pause right here on this page, because I think this is one of the more important things to be able to let sink in. Because for every one of these presentations that I do, I sit across the desk from a few dozen people to talk one-on-one about their finances and how things are going and creating a plan for the budget and their debts. Despite what I tell folks regularly, I think they always have some reticence when things haven't gone as planned to come back and tell us about it or to update the plan. Maybe they had a big splurge that they're telling themselves they shouldn't have had, or they had an expense that completely liquidated their savings that they were trying so hard to build up. And they tell themselves that they failed at something, and therefore they don't want me to tell them, which I don't do. Because the reality is, number one, things happen. You get a nail in the tire. You have worked and worked and worked and worked really hard, and you want to be able to spend a little bit on yourself or something. You just have to do it without totally busting the budget and the rest of the long-term goals. But regularly, especially if it's something that's a necessary expense, those car repairs, for example, your goal was to have $3,000 in savings. You were up to $2,000, but then you had to have a major repair on the car, and you're back down to only $500. This is not a failure by any stretch, because number one, you didn't have to go get out extremely expensive debt. You didn't have to borrow from next paycheck. You didn't have to borrow from friends or family and strain those relationships. You're not having to pay interest. That's what that money was there for. That was the goal. And it will get built back up. You've had the practice at setting aside enough that you had $2,000 in savings. You know how to do it. It's just a matter of building it back up. So that's very much a and even for the splurge type savings, that's something that needs to be filtered into the overall budget plan, so that you know how much is there for enjoyable stuff. It's not realistic to have that set as a zero indefinitely. But realizing that these things are going to happen, these fluctuations happen, these emergencies happen, ideally, you want to have a game plan for how to deal with it financially, so that it doesn't blow up the whole plan, and so that you don't throw out the whole plan. That would be far too extreme than is necessary. So let's talk about how to have a good plan when the plan doesn't work. So what's the backup plan? Look back at the original and what you have there, and think about where you're likely to get sidetracked. What's possible to get in the way and to make it difficult or impossible to do what's needed? And then what can you do? What can you change to still help you meet the overarching goal? Write down at least one possible problem, something that you see as a potential difficulty, and a backup plan. And I'm going to show you some examples so you have some ideas. So, for example, in the one that we had about the coupons, So sometimes if overtime is offered, it's hard to not take overtime and get a little extra money. So if you happen to work late on a Thursday and you don't have time to do the coupon shopping, you can still do it Sunday before going to the store. So you'll take a little extra time, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, before you head out to the store at 4. Definitely can work. So in this example, it's far better to adjust the time frame for when you're doing it than to just say, oh, this isn't going to work for me. I'm not going to be able to do it on Thursday, so I'm just not going to deal with coupons this week. And I'm just not going to save. That could be $10, $20 that you're not using in coupons to be able to put towards your savings goals. So it's far better to adjust the time frame on it than just to scrap it either for that week or permanently. Because it's so easy to just say, oh, this just isn't working for me. This plan isn't working. These steps aren't working. I'm going to throw out the whole thing. It's just this tiny small adjustment of what date and what time you do the coupon shopping can make all the difference with being able to stick with it and sticking with savings. It's your turn. Talk to me about your plans and your backup plans. What are some things that you think could get in the way of the steps that you're planning on taking? And then tell me what's the backup. So if your goal was to find some extra work, maybe a little extra work on the weekends or delivery in the evenings, what are some possible problems? And how could you work around that? Or if your goal is to try to keep your back to school clothing or new back to work seasonal clothing for yourself within a certain budget amount, what are some possible problems you could have? And what's the backup? And a whole extra slide just to remind you, because saying it twice is not a bad thing. Setbacks are not failures. If you need to spend your savings before you reach your goal, that's okay. In fact, that's exactly what it's there for. It's there so that you don't have to take out extra debt or do something else to try to meet an emergency cost. Just start saving again. Or an even better way to say it, just keep doing what you've been doing. If you were able to save enough to have the money in savings to put towards that emergency, you're doing something right. Keep at it. Keep up the good work. And then set a reminder for yourself. Because even though the energy level for this is high right at the moment, it's amazing how quickly we can forget simple things in the midst of trying to do something new in a day that already has a routine to it. So you can set a reminder on your phone. You can write it down on your paper calendar if you follow that. You can even take a picture and set it as the lock screen for your phone. That one's great for reminding yourself, say, not to go through the drive-through or something like that, or you pull out your phone to see if you have cash or to pull up your app, or even just a sticker somewhere that you'll remember it and see it. So, how to organize your day, planning to clip coupons in the evening, put a reminder on your mirror, or somewhere that you'll see it. So in this example, for section 10, this person says they're going to put the reminder on their mirror so that they remember on Thursday nights to be able to clip their coupons and be ready for it. Let's pause and breathe. We have made a lot of progress today. We've talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about choosing a savings goal, and you've chosen not only a goal, but you've chosen one very specific goal that you feel like is going to work for you, which is awesome. You found strategies for how to implement that, including specific steps to take and when you're going to take them and who might be able to help you with that. And making that plan, and not just a plan, but also a backup plan. Because it's not for, if something happens that makes it difficult or that gets in the way, but when something happens, because that's kind of how life is. So knowing that having a backup plan and a secondary is completely okay and so good. So here's the next steps. One is to take your saving steps. So we've done the theoretical work today and we've broken it down, and it's cementing in your mind and in your mental calendar, but it's actually got to be enacted. So taking those steps. and making those deposits or transfers, depending on how the finances work. That's just how easy it can be once the plan is in place. A lot of the hard work is coming up with a plan, which is what we've started today, what you're going to finish as you finish filling out the rest of your steps on your form. And I encourage you to share it with somebody, maybe a family member or maybe a friend who you know is also working on such things. Or talk with us. We're always happy to talk through your steps towards what might happen for you. If you need help brainstorming, if you need help with the budget plan, or if you just want to have somebody to be accountable to and to share those successes and those what feel like failures but are still just steps. That's part of what we're here for.